Welcome to Maybe Leaks. In part one of this two-part series, we'll review the detailed report from the House Committee on Ethics regarding allegations of misconduct against Representative Matt Gaetz. 42-year-old Gaetz has served as the U.S. Representative for Florida's 1st Congressional District since 2017, but abruptly resigned on November 13, 2024. This report was released after his departure on December 23, 2024. This episode will provide background information, a timeline of the investigation, the standards of conduct for a congressperson, and specific allegations of misconduct. Due to the length of the report, I will summarize technical and repetitive portions, including sections 2 and 3. Listener discretion is advised due to the sensitive topics discussed. I will do my best to abbreviate and redact words where appropriate. A reminder, please subscribe to the channel and sign up for notifications if you'd like to receive updates. Now, let's get started. 1. Introduction. On April 9, 2021, the committee announced it was investigating a series of widely reported allegations relating to Representative Matt Gaetz. At the request of the DOJ, the committee deferred its review during the 117th Congress. After it was organized for the 118th, the committee reauthorized its investigation into the allegations involving Representative Gaetz. Specifically, the committee undertook a review of allegations that Representative Gaetz may have engaged in misconduct and/or illicit substance use, shared inappropriate images or videos on the House floor, misused state ID records, converted campaign funds to personal use, and/or accepted a bribe, improper gratuity, or an impermissible gift. In June 2024, following extensive fact-finding, the committee determined to continue its review of the allegations of misconduct, substance use, and acceptance of impermissible gifts and expanded its review to include the allegations that Representative Gaetz may have dispensed special privileges and favors to individuals with whom he had a personal relationship and obstructed government investigations into this conduct. At that time, the committee determined to take no further action on the allegations relating to the House floor, state ID records, personal use of campaign funds, and acceptance of a bribe or gratuity. On November 14, 2024, Representative Gaetz resigned from the House after the president-elect announced his intention to nominate Gaetz for the position of United States Attorney General. As a result of Representative Gaetz' resignation, the committee lost jurisdiction to continue its investigation. Gaetz subsequently withdrew from consideration for a position of Attorney General. At this time, he has not yet announced any intent to seek higher office or run to Congress. Or return to Congress, I should say. The committee has typically not released its findings after losing jurisdiction in a matter. However, there are a few prior instances where the committee has determined that it was in the public's interest to release its findings even after a member's resignation. The committee does not do so lightly. In this instance, although several committee members objected, a majority agreed that the committee's findings should be released to the public. In sum, the committee found substantial evidence of the following, and these will be detailed more in the report as we go. But just to summarize them, they found for 3 years Gaetz regularly paid women to engage in activity, that he engaged in activity with a 17-year-old, that for 2 years he used or possessed illegal substances, that Gaetz accepted gifts, transportation, lodging, etc., in excess of permissible amounts, that he arranged for his chief of staff to assist a woman with who he was engaged in intimate activities with in obtaining a passport and falsely indicating to the U.S. Department of State that she was a constituent. Gaetz also sought to impede and obstruct the investigation and has acted in a manner that reflects discredibility upon the House. Based on the above, the committee concluded there was substantial evidence that Representative Gaetz violated House rules, state and federal laws, and other standards of conduct, prohibiting P. Statutory R. Illicit substance use, acceptance of impermissible gifts, the provision of special favors and privileges, and obstruction of Congress. The committee did not find sufficient evidence to conclude that Rep. Gaetz had violated the S-trafficking statute. Although Gaetz did cause the transportation of women across state lines for purpose of commercial S, the committee did not find evidence that any of these women were under 18 at the time of travel, nor did the committee find sufficient evidence to conclude that the commercial S acts were induced by force, fraud, or coercion. Representative Gaetz was uncooperative throughout the committee's review. He provided minimal documentation in response to the committee's requests. He also did not agree to a voluntary interview. On July 11, 2024, the committee issued a subpoena to Rep. Gaetz for his testimony. He did not appear, despite having received notice of the time and date of the deposition. The committee then sent Rep. Gaetz a set of written questions, to which he issued a public response that ignored most of the direct questions about the misconduct and mischaracterized the committee's investigation and his participation up to that point. Despite Gaetz' claims to the contrary, the committee's singular mission is to protect the integrity of the House. When faced with serious public allegations against a member, the committee will often investigate, and when such allegations are false, the committee has shared a goal with the respondent to disprove those allegations. While the committee considered whether to establish an investigative subcommittee to consider sanctions against Representative Gaetz, the committee ultimately determined that it would not risk further victimization of the women involved in this matter. Most of the women with whom the committee spoke with also gave statements to DOJ and urged the committee to rely on those statements in lieu of requiring them to relive their experience. They were particularly concerned with providing additional testimony about a sitting congressman in light of DOJ's lack of action on their prior testimony. DOJ refused to provide the relevant statements and other significant evidence to the committee. DOJ cited internal policies about protecting unchanged subjects like Representative Gaetz, general concerns about how the DOJ's cooperation with the committee may deter other victims in other matters, and various inapposite policies relating to congressional oversight of DOJ itself. DOJ's initial deferral request and subsequent lack of cooperation with the committee's review caused significant delays in the investigation. Those delays were compounded by Rep. Gaetz' obstructive efforts. The committee has determined that its findings must be released without further impediments. Accordingly, on December 10, 2024, the committee voted on whether to release this report. Although several members did not support its release, the majority of members voted in favor of its release. Section 2, Procedural History, which I will summarize. Let's see. The procedural history section of the report, it outlines the timeline and key actions taken during this investigation, and it was partially discussed in the introduction already. So, to summarize, the committee announced the investigation into allegations against Gaetz on April 9, 2021, and shortly thereafter, the DOJ requested the matter to be deferred. The DOJ announced February 23rd, 2023, that at that time, no changes or charges would be filed. And in May 2023, the committee reauthorized the matter. And then, throughout the investigation, the committee sent multiple requests for information, issued subpoenas, and reviewed thousands of documents. Despite delays and lack of cooperation from the DOJ, the committee continued its investigation. And then reading from the report again, that portion summarizes the timeline of everybody else, but as it relates to Representative Gaetz, we'll start at page 6, paragraph 2. And the committee initially made a narrowly tailored request for information to Rep. Gaetz seeking limited information on the allegations that would not be within DOJ's jurisdiction. The alleged acceptance of improper gifts and sharing of images without clothes, and videos on the House floor. The request also invited Rep. Gaetz to provide additional information relevant to any of the allegations under review. Representative Gaetz sought numerous extensions and complained about the burden of the request. He ultimately provided only 3 pages of information in response to the committee's initial request. On May 20th, 2024, the committee requested Gaetz inform the committee whether he would agree to participate in a voluntary interview and provided him a list of allegations so that he could make any response or provide any information regarding the allegations. On May 24th, he provided brief written denials of the allegations and demanded that the committee address leaks prior to giving any oral testimony to the committee. On June 28th, the committee requested that Gaetz provide the committee with all records previously produced to DOJ, as well as dates of availability for an interview by July 8th. At that time, the committee made an explicit request for any exonerating information. Let me repeat. At that time, the committee made an explicit request for any exonerating information. The committee also informed Representative Gaetz that it could not permit further delays. Rep. Gaetz did not produce the requested documents or dates of availability, and on July 10th, he asked for an extension through August recess to produce documents he deemed appropriate. Representative Gaetz did not provide these documents despite multiple extensions provided by the committee. The committee also noted to Representative Gaetz that an interview would be an opportunity to respond to the allegations against him and any relevant questions arising out of the review. However, he declined to voluntarily participate, again, making demands of the committee instead. On July 11th, the committee issued a subpoena for Rep. Gaetz' testimony. The subpoena was served electronically to Rep. Gaetz and the Chief of Staff, who had communicated with the committee on behalf of the congressman throughout the investigation. Rep. Gaetz did not appear to testify pursuant to the committee's subpoena. Gaetz did not provide a legal basis for his failure to appear, but instead informed the committee that, upon information and belief, the House will not take action to enforce the subpoena. The committee informed Gaetz that, following his failure to comply with the subpoena and to provide a fulsome response to previous requests for this information, they would rely on the record available and make its findings in this matter. Rep. Gaetz responded by stating that he had prioritized providing evidence that most clearly and directly proves his innocence, and then stated that he welcomed written requests from the committee. The committee subsequently sent a set of written requests to Rep. Gaetz. Gaetz issued his response publicly, which did not answer most questions, and asserted that he would no longer voluntarily participate. On November 14, 2024, Representative Gaetz submitted his resignation to the House. On December 10, 2024, while several members of the committee objected, a majority of the committee members voted to release the report. 3. Relevant laws, rules, and other applicable standards of conduct. I will condense this for time. A. Federal laws. Federal laws prohibit trafficking minors for commercial S, transporting individuals for illegal S activity, and obstructing Congress. They also criminalize tampering with witnesses and making false statements to Congress. Violations include using force, fraud, or coercion in trafficking, and influencing congressional inquiries improperly. B. Florida state laws, which make it a felony for anyone 24 and older to engage in intimate activity with minors, and furthermore, solicitation and unauthorized possession of controlled substances are criminal offenses. House rules, which is C, House rules and other standards of conduct for members of Congress include broad limitations on the solicitation and acceptance of gifts, with specific guidelines for gifts over $250. Members must report certain gifts and adhere to rules regarding the non-commercial aircraft travel. Official resources should be used for representational purposes, and members must uphold the Constitution, laws, and regulations, avoiding the dispensing of special favors or privileges. Members are expected to behave in a manner that reflects credibility on the House. Four, factual background. Allegations of S misconduct and substance use. On March 30th, 2021, the New York Times reported that Representative Gaetz was under investigation by the DOJ for possible violation of S trafficking laws. The investigation reportedly related to allegations that Gaetz had an inappropriate relationship with a 17-year-old and paid for her travel with him. On April 1st, 2021, additional reporting indicated the federal investigation included allegations involving cash payments, the use of illegal substances, the recruitment of women online for S, and the use of campaign funds to pay for travel for women. The DOJ investigation was part of an ongoing inquiry involving a former county tax collector in Florida named Joel Greenberg, who was sentenced to 11 years in prison in 2022. 1. Representative Gaetz' arrangement with Joel Greenberg. The committee record shows that, shortly after he was sworn into Congress in 2017, Gaetz became friends with Mr. Greenberg, who had recently taken office as the Seminole County tax collector. According to Mr. Greenberg, the two of them met at the house of Christopher Dorwith, a Florida lobbyist. Mr. Greenberg and Representative Gaetz frequently attended parties and other gatherings with young women in attendance. Many of the women were initially contacted by Mr. Greenberg via the website seekingarrangement.com, and Mr. Greenberg subsequently introduced the women to Representative Gaetz. Seekingarrangement.com advertised itself as a sugar dating website that primarily connected older men and younger women seeking mutually beneficial relationships. The website was generally understood by many of the women interviewed by the committee to involve, at minimum, an exchange of companionship for money. There have been prosecutions against individuals for S trafficking that originated with contacts made through seekingarrangement.com or similar websites, and some have called for the website to be shut down due to its facilitation of selling oneself for their body. Platforms such as seekingarrangement.com are known to make it easier for traffickers to exploit victims and connect with buyers. The committee did not receive any evidence that Representative Gaetz had his own account on seekingarrangement.com. Mr. Greenberg indicated he frequently showed the site to Rep. Gaetz and that he provided his login credentials to Gaetz. According to Mr. Greenberg, he and Representative Gaetz would split the costs of substances, hotels, and girls. For example, the committee reviewed evidence that such activity occurred in July 2017. Specifically, evidence showed that Representative Gaetz, Mr. Greenberg, and others gathered at a rental property located in the Brickell neighborhood of Miami, Florida, for a weekend beginning on July 7, 2017. Representative Gaetz and Mr. Greenberg also spent time in Fort Lauderdale during the Miami stay, during which time Representative Gaetz withdrew at least $1,200 in cash from 3 different accounts at a single ATM. On June 22, 2017, Gaetz paid $6,308 for that rental booking. On July 9th, Mr. Greenberg paid Gaetz $1,600 by check. Greenberg stated the check was reimbursement for share of the rental. Mr. Greenberg also noted that they met up with another individual for dinner that weekend, and he shared a photo of Representative Gaetz himself and the other individual on social media on July 8, 2017. The committee received evidence confirming that Gaetz at times personally made payments to women who attended parties with him and Greenberg, using various peer-to-peer electronic payment services, as well as cash and checks. The committee's record also indicates that Greenberg sometimes paid women for having S with Gaetz and was sometimes reimbursed by Gaetz. Witnesses indicated that there were, at times, a lump sum would be sent to one woman, who would then distribute the money evenly among others who attended the party. Likewise, in one instance, Representative Gaetz sent $400 to Mr. Greenberg with the note, hit up victim A. Hit up victim A, is what he said. Mr. Greenberg then sent 2 women payments totaling $400, including victim A. On August 19, 2020, Greenberg was indicted on charges related to his misuse of motor vehicle records and identification documents in his role as Seminole County tax collector, and his attempt to falsely accuse a political opponent of being a pedophile. He was additionally charged with trafficking of a child, victim A, wire fraud, bribery of a public official, theft of government property, and related charges. He pled guilty to 6 charges, including trafficking of victim A in May 2021, but his sentencing was delayed until December of 22 due to his ongoing cooperation in several other matters. As part of his cooperation, he provided information that was ultimately corroborated and ended in successful prosecutions. 2. Representative Gaetz' interaction with women he met through Mr. Greenberg. First, the transactional nature of the interactions. From 2017 through 2020, Gaetz made tens of thousands of dollars in payments to women that the committee determined were likely in connection with S activity and/or substance use. Payments were made to these women using peer-to-peer payment platforms such as PayPal, Venmo, and Cash App. While Gaetz had accounts in his name on each of these platforms, he also sometimes paid women through another person's PayPal account or through an account held under a pseudonymous email account. Representative Gaetz also paid some of the women by check or in cash. The following chart summarizes payments made by Representative Gaetz to Mr. Greenberg and to women via peer-to-peer payment platforms or checks. As we see here, woman 1, his former girlfriend, received by far the most monetarily, which was $63,836.58 for 2017 through 2020, which is also the longest time span. And Joel Greenberg received $3,950 in the years 2018 and 2019. The committee's record indicates that Representative Gaetz was in a long-term relationship with Woman 1, and therefore some of the payments may have been of a legitimate nature. However, as discussed further below, Woman 1 asserted her Fifth Amendment right when asked whether the payments to her from Gaetz were of S activity and/or for substances, or for her to pass on to others for such purposes. Based on that assertion combined with evidence received by other sources, the committee found substantial reason to believe that most of these payments were for such activity. The committee was not able to speak with every woman who received payments from Gaetz that were suspected of being part of illicit activity. Several women initially were responsive to the committee's outreach, but later told the committee they would not voluntarily participate. Others were clear at first contact that they feared retaliation or were unwilling to voluntarily relive their interactions with Representative Gaetz, due to the women's reluctance to cooperate, as well as the delay caused by DOJ's deferral request and subsequent refusal to provide meaningful cooperation. The committee was unable to determine the full extent to which Gaetz's payments to women were compensation for engaging in S activity with him. However, the record before the committee provides substantial reason to believe that many of the payments in the chart were made in connection with S activity and/or illicit substance use. The committee was also not able to quantify the amount of cash payments Rep. Gaetz made to women, or the amount of payments that other individuals, such as Mr. Greenberg, made on behalf of Representative Gaetz. Gaetz refused to answer questions about his relationships with the women involved. There was, however, evidence that he understood and shared many of the women's transactional views of their arrangements. In one text exchange viewed by the committee, Representative Gaetz balked at a woman's request that he send her money after he accused her of ditching him on a night when she was feeling tired, claiming she only gave him a drive-by. The woman asserted to Rep. Gaetz that she was being treated differently than other women he was paying for S. The committee also obtained text messages in which Gaetz's then girlfriend informed some of the women who were typically paid for S that, and this is a quote, "The guys, Representative Gaetz and Mr. Greenberg, wanted me to share that they are a little limited in their cash flow this weekend. Matt was like, if it can be more of a customer appreciation week." A few months later, she noted the following: "By the way, Matt also mentioned he is going to be a bit generous because of the customer appreciation thing last time. Another woman specifically recalled a conversation with Gaetz about issues with Greenberg's following through with expected payments after Greenberg's encounters with her. Greenberg told the committee that Gaetz was aware that the women they had S with had met Greenberg through the sugar dating website. Representative Gaetz did not appear to have negotiated specific payment amounts prior to engaging in S activity with the women he paid. Instead, the women had a general expectation that they would typically receive some amount of money after each S encounter. In 2017, using a pseudonymous account, Gaetz made payments to women largely without the description of the purpose of the payment. After several months, he began to use other payment accounts, including ones with his own name, using innocuous descriptions to indicate the purpose of the payments. Gaetz did not provide any information regarding the tens of thousands of dollars in payments he made to over a dozen women, despite being offered the opportunity to do so by the committee. Gaetz was provided with a list of women who the committee found payments from beginning in 2017 and was asked to inform the committee of the purpose of those payments, as well as how he knew the individual and whether, quote, if you engaged in any S activity with the individual, did she ever indicate to you that she expected payment for engagement in S activity with you, unquote. Rather than answer the questions, Gaetz asserted incorrectly the following. You ask, in part, whether I've had S with a list of adult women over the past 7 years. The lawful, consensual S activities of adults are not the business of Congress. Many of the women interviewed by the committee were clear that there was a general expectation of S. One woman, who was paid more than $5,000 by Gaetz between 2018 and 19, told the committee that 99% of the time Representative Gaetz and her were hanging out, there was S involved. Text messages obtained by the committee showed that Gaetz would also ask the women to bring substances to the rendezvous, in some instances requiring vaping cartridges and repaying the women directly, but in other cases requesting a full complement of party favors, vitamins, or rolls. Gaetz sent one woman several $100s for vape cartridges. One woman stated that, with respect to a 2018 Bahamas trip, quote, myself and Representative Gaetz' then-girlfriend bought substances with us, and I do know that Matt supplied his then-girlfriend with money, unquote. Another woman said that she brought a substance to at least one event with Gaetz and that she witnessed him taking that substance, or another one, on at least 5 different occasions. Greenberg told the committee that he would typically provide substances, such as, and these are substances, by the way, I'm just a sidebar. These are substances that start with a C, an M, an E, or an M, depending on your generation, perhaps. And I believe that's all of them, other than alcohol, that are in here. So when I say substances, that's what I'm referring to. Another woman said that she brought substances to at least one event with Gaetz and that she witnessed him taking said substances on 5 occasions. Greenberg told the committee that he would typically provide substances for events that he attended with Gaetz and that Gaetz would pay him back in cash. Several other women observed Gaetz to be under the influence of substances, and additionally, nearly every witness interviewed observed Gaetz using one of those substances. Selected interactions. Based on the evidentiary record, the committee identified at least 20 occasions from 2017 through 2020 where there were substantial evidence that Gaetz met with women who were paid for S and or substances. They also received testimony related to multiple additional trips, events, or parties where Gaetz may have paid women for S and substances, although the committee could not determine specific dates or locations on all of them. To the extent Gaetz paid money to women in connection with those trips, at least some transactions are reflected in the chart discussed in the prior section. One of the women that Greenberg met on seekingarrangement.com and introduced to Gaetz in or around March of 2017 became Gaetz' girlfriend when he was almost 35 and she was 21. Their relationship continued for 2 years. The relationship was not exclusive, and the committee received evidence that Gaetz' then-girlfriend sometimes participated with him in S encounters with other women who were also active on the site and or otherwise involved in S for money arrangements. The committee also obtained text messages where she appeared to act as an intermediary between Gaetz and the women that he paid for S. She herself was paid tens of thousands of dollars by Gaetz over the course of their 2-year relationship. She stated the following: "Matt always paid for anything for me." However, she invoked her Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination in response to several questions, including what the purpose of specific payments were, whether Gaetz ever paid money for S, and whether she was aware of Gaetz paying others. She also invoked her Fifth Amendment privilege when asked to explain an increase in payments from Gaetz in 2019, whether any of the payments from Gaetz were related to substances or S, and whether the payments she received from Greenberg were related to Gaetz. The committee obtained messages between Greenberg and a 20-year-old woman he met through seekingarrangement.com who noted, "I usually do $400 per meet." As shown in the following exchange, Greenberg and the woman made plans to each bring a friend to the meet. The committee found that the language used by the woman and amount proposed were consistent with typical pay-per-meet arrangements made by users of seekingarrangement.com at that time. Messages between Joel Greenberg and 20-year-old female, and they discuss money, who to bring, what friends will be there. There's a photo of Gaetz, and she asks if they've ever tried a substance that starts with M or E, depending on your age. Evidence reviewed by the committee shows that on several occasions, Gaetz met with the woman who corresponded with Greenberg in those messages. He continues to follow her on social media and has paid her more than $2,000 since late 2018. The committee received evidence indicating that the 20-year-old woman in the above messages joined Greenberg and Gaetz at a hotel in Florida less than 2 weeks after their initial encounter with Gaetz. The committee's record indicates that Gaetz also invited another woman who he regularly paid for S to meet him at the hotel, without disclosing to her that others would be present. The other woman, who was 21, had recently asked the congressman for his help with her tuition. She recalled Gaetz agreed and told her to meet at the hotel room, where he could provide a check, which, according to the woman, was interesting because he normally sent Venmo payments. When she arrived, she found Greenberg and the 20-year-old woman present. The 21-year-old woman told the committee there was an expectation of an S encounter. The four of them had S, and afterwards, Gaetz gave her a $750 check made out to cash with tuition reimbursement in the memo line, which she deposited the next day. The 21-year-old woman told the committee she believed the encounter could potentially be a form of coercion because she really needed the money. Gaetz's financial records confirmed that he wrote the check and that he was present at the hotel identified by the woman on the date identified by the woman. As another example, the committee obtained text messages that appeared to show Gaetz messaging a woman he knew through Greenberg, inviting her to travel on a private plane to Key West from May 19th through 21st of 2017 with 2 guys, 4 girls, a very high-quality adventurous group, according to the text. She initially responded, "Yeah, I'm in," to which Gaetz responded, "Fantastic. As is true with all the time you spend with me. It will be fun and very chill." The same woman was photographed with Gaetz on May 19th in Orlando. The photograph depicts Gaetz in a casual shirt with his arm around her in a dimly lit bar. She was also photographed in front of a helicopter with 3 other women associated with Gaetz around the same time, including his then-girlfriend. After the committee retained copies of the text messages and selfie photo, there was public reporting about the evidence. In response, Gaetz's spokesperson released in a statement asserting, quote, "Rep. Gaetz does not know anything about the woman you're referencing, though he takes thousands of selfies each year," unquote. Payment records reviewed by the committee, however, show that Gaetz paid $600 to the woman the same day he was photographed with her. In February 2018, Greenberg introduced Gaetz to 2 other women with accounts on seekingarrangement.com. They were generally older than the other women that Greenberg had previously introduced to Gaetz, and had slightly different relationship with the two men. They were the only two women paid by Gaetz who denied to the committee that the payments they received from the congressman were compensation for exchange in S activity. One of the women, who was 25 years old when she met Gaetz, testified that she understood herself to be more sophisticated than some other women on the website. In contrast to the women who had almost exclusively interacted with Gaetz in hotel rooms or at private parties, this woman attended events as his date, for which she was paid $500 to $1,000 per event. She also stated that she did not feel pressured to have S with Gaetz and only did so on some occasions. She told the committee that in December 2019, Representative Gaetz had his congressional assistant arrange travel for her to Washington, D.C. for one night. According to the woman, she attended a dinner with Gaetz and a few other individuals. She stayed overnight at a hotel with Gaetz and had S with him. Gaetz sent the woman $1,000 around that time. The woman told the committee she was paid to be his date and that S was not necessarily an expectation. The other woman, 27, said she met Gaetz and was the only woman interviewed by the committee who did not view their relationship as transactional in nature. The first time she met him, however, she had S with him and was paid $1,000 by Mr. Greenberg, which she understood to have been at Gaetz's direction. She told the committee that she viewed her relationship with Gaetz as more or less dating, although it was never anything serious. She said she was not familiar with his then-girlfriend, and she was not aware that he was having an S relationship with her friend, the 25-year-old woman. She frequently commented on his social media, and he still follows her on social media. Most of the S for money encounters that the committee reviewed occurred in Florida, around Orlando. Several of the women were students based in that area. On several occasions, however, Gaetz did travel with women that he paid for S. On September 13, 2018, Gaetz, 2 other men, and 6 women traveled to the Bahamas. Gaetz arrived by commercial plane later than the others, who arrived on private planes. The group stayed at a vacation rental booked and paid for by one of the male travelers. The attendees stated that this was a social trip. They sunbathed, chartered a boat, and went to dinners and to a casino as a group. Gaetz engaged in S activity with at least 4 women on the trip. Several of the women recalled that Gaetz appeared to be under the influence of substances and that they took other substances during the trip. One woman said she witnessed Gaetz taking things as well. Most, if not all, of the women involved had some history of S interactions with Gaetz for which they had been paid. While there were no specific payment to the women in connection with the Bahamas trip, according to one woman, the trip itself was more so the payment. The group returned to Orlando on September 16th. Gaetz flew on a private plane with another man and 3 women, while the remaining individuals flew on another private plane. Gaetz paid for 2 women to travel to New York City in January 19 to meet up with him and his then-girlfriend. Text messages show Gaetz asking the women about obtaining substances in advance of the trip, stating, "Who can help with party favors?" In addition to paying for their travel costs, the committee received evidence that Gaetz sent the women money to compensate for S activities they engaged in with him during the trip. While all the women that the committee interviewed stated that their S activity with Gaetz was consensual, at least one woman felt that the use of substances at the party and events that they have attended may have impaired their ability to really know what was going on or fully consent. Indeed, nearly every woman that the committee spoke with could not remember the details of at least one or more of the events that they attended with Gaetz, and attributed that to substances or alcohol consumption. The women also discussed instances where Gaetz would try to convince them to have S with him or Greenberg. One of them said, "He would make me feel bad about not having S with him or Joel Greenberg." And that he would say, "Why don't you have S with me?" Or, "Greenberg looks very sad over there. Make him happy." Another woman said that their relationship at some point was a loving friendship, but over time it came to feel like a task. A third woman said, quote, "When I look back on certain moments, I feel violated." One woman said the following, "I think about it all the time. I still see him when I turn on the TV, and there's nothing anyone can do. It's frustrating to know I lived a reality that he denies. And that is where we'll finish up for the day. We will start where we left off in the next episode, on the specific allegations of misconduct. And thank you for tuning into this episode of Mimi Leaks. We appreciate your support and hope you found the information insightful. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to stay updated. Join us in the next episode as we finish the report and uncover more details. See you soon.